Okay,
All
sweet.
right. So, welcome to the Leighton Inclusion Interview Show, which is about recognizing the difference between kindness and cruelty. And we'll be talking a lot about kindness and inclusion today, especially when it comes to connecting with people. I'd like to welcome John Poveromo.
Poveromo.
Poveromo. Yes, I'd like to welcome John Poveromo to the show. Hi, John. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. One of the things is that I'm a podcast fan and discovered John through an interview he did with Mike Appel.
Oh,
It turned,
wow.
yeah, that's how I found you.
That's right.
Yeah, you have a podcast called Dystopia Tonight, and that covers your interests from
Hmm.
music to health and, of course, comedy, because you are a working comedian and a storyteller. You have
Hmm.
lots of talents
Thank you.
from national TV to touring work, art, indie indie film, and helping people through activism, including you've done some telethons, right?
Yeah, I'm working on the fourth annual MS benefit that I do for the National MS Society in New York right now. The next one will be March 26th to the 27th, 8 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Wonderful. And that's going to be broadcasting
On the
where?
on the website for the National MS Society. It'll be I believe once we get it set up, it'll be bit.ly/dystopia all night 25.
Sweet, sweet. I like how you do that. I got to ask you, first of all, what is dystopia and why is that the name of your podcast? Exactly.
So that's somewhat layered, and I'll try to condense the story in general. But um, you know, I'm working comic. I've been a working comic for a very long time. I've had always pitching stuff when I go out to LA, and a recent trip. Um, One of the shows that I had written was very close to getting picked up, and then through several show businessy Hollywood bullshit stuff, like it just the lawyers got involved, something fell through, and I remember coming back home to the East Coast, and I was just talking to my manager, and I was like, I said the second I think we were in the first Trump presidency, and he was just kind of ripping apart all our climate safeguards. I think we probably just pulled out of the Paris Accords. Um,
Yeah.
and uh, and I was like, the day that this global warming shit finally hits is the day that my face is going to come across someone's desk, and they're just going to be like, "Oh, we should give this dude a show." And then, as the world is ending, and then I'd come up with this idea for a comic who finally gets his big break hosting his own talk show, but it's because the world is ending.
Right.
And everyone else, all the other talk show hosts have died. But the networks, being greedy corporations, still, even though we don't know how much time we have left on the planet, it's literally falling apart around us. Um, they still want money. So they pick some poor schlub, me, to host the show, and I called it Dystopia Tonight, and that was that was my idea for a real show, and then um, so this guy was going to host a talk show through the apocalypse, and then COVID hit, and we literally like every article I had seen and everything I had read, like leading up to it,
Yeah.
just kept describing everything as, do you feel like you're living in a this is dystopic times. This is a dystopia. Even through Trump's first term, leading up to COVID, everything did seem very dystopic. So I had already had the name, I had trademarked it and everything, and I never wanted to start a podcast before, but because we couldn't tour, I was like, well, we're gonna talk about it. I'm gonna call it Dystopia Tonight, and I'm gonna have every celebrity, artist, musician, comedian, actor I can find, and talk to them about, one, their life and career, because I'm fascinated by other artists and what they do. But also, in the very beginning of this, it was in the middle of COVID and we were all in lockdown. So I was just kind of checking in and being like, how are you coping through this dystopia? It's a dystopic nightmare. And the weird part about this and the name of the show is apparently dystopia never ends for us now. It's ne
No,
we have only gotten deeper in, especially with Trump's second term, we've only gotten deeper into the mix. And there's never like, the cool thing about the show itself is that it does try to lean towards the positive side. We're not just doom and gloom. The very beginning of the show is an intro, and a 30 seconds of just news clippings and also goofy shit like Godzilla and Kong fighting, old black and white clips.
sure,
But like just a very, amalgamation of like um, everything that's been going on and everything we've had to deal with and everything we're seeing in front of us from TikTok to Reels and whatever. And then it's supposed to be a bit of how are you coping with it? How are you doing? And then, hilarity ensues after that and deep conversation and um, meaningful talk about art. Because art doesn't
absolutely.
die in the face of dystopia. I think it only gets stronger.
Yeah, I'm wondering about that. I mean, the amount of people that blasted Kendrick Lamar's set, and
Mm.
all they had to do was pick up a few words and Google the songs and go, "Oh,
Oh.
he's talking about standing up to some pretty crummy people."
But there, you just said it right now. All they had to do was Google. I mean, could you imagine if more than, even if half the country decided to do their fucking research at any given point in time, how much better off we would be? I mean, think about it. No one Googled tariffs,
No,
right? Like, I
but
mean,
we did. Yeah,
we
the
did.
voters. Yeah,
Yeah, we did. Or if you just had some common sense, you would understand that this dude's a con artist, and that's not the like you would have some kind of recall for the first 4 years and just be able to understand that nothing he said he was going to do was done and all this other shit. But other than that, yeah, people, yeah, I mean, there's people I know that don't want to learn like that. They don't want to go, I didn't understand that, but maybe I could. I wonder what that was about. They just
yeah.
go, I don't get it. It makes me feel stupid. I don't want to feel stupid. And then they
But
move on.
two things: one, it's cult of personality, and
Mm.
two, the education system has not been funded. And I say this over and over. Teachers in New York City, which is a rich community, and we've got sports teams that could certainly donate 10% of their earnings to education. They can make more money, raise their rates because
Yeah.
people will continue to go to games. And teachers get, unless you're a couple, single teachers have to create supplies for their students, pay for supplies, and they're
Hmm.
only allowed a $500 tax deduction unless they're married, and then the wife gets 250 and the husband gets 250 off their tax.
Right.
That's it.
There's like, I mean, that I have so many teachers I love and so many teachers I know in my family and friends and stuff
Me too.
that it drives me insane that they're not as well paid as they should be and just respected in general for what they do. That's gone downhill. The other thing too, though, is I do feel for people, whether you're um politically aware or not. Like, it doesn't ever, like, when we were younger and maybe even in a different time, you can't help the time that you grow up in or that you live in, but you did have a break from having to learn or from hearing too much bad shit. You don't get that anymore. So like I
No,
do understand that people are just sitting there going, "Man, I just want to watch the fucking Super Bowl and I don't want to have to think about what the meaning behind A, B, and C is." I get that completely.
yeah,
The unfortunate thing is like it's just we're not living in that time frame anymore. We are like, talk about dystopia. Like, so um there's a weird thing my friends and I are experiencing where if you look at history and past generations, if they were in a recession or a depression or whatever it was, you could tell. Like there was nobody that you didn't see or run into or condition they were in where you didn't feel what globally everybody was going through. But for us, it's not the same thing. It's such a weird, like, there's like a cognitive dissonance because you've got the news and the media and everybody on, who knows what's going on is like, holy shit, fucking red alert, everybody. You know what I mean? They're ringing a bell. They're letting everybody know we're all fucked. We're going to be fucked in the
Yeah.
future, yada, yada, yada. But in the meantime, Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, Reels, TikTok, streaming services, Spotify. I mean, we're inundated. I mean, look at my fucking jacket. You know what I mean? There's no, we're not like in need of distraction. We have plenty of
No.
it. So it's very hard to like. I think for some people to go, this is really bad, but they don't feel it. So what's the point? You know what I mean? Like they're not gonna like. I understand when people go, I don't know what you're talking about. My family and I are doing great. Well, now, but until they start coming around and knocking on your fucking door. Am I allowed to
Well,
curse on this,
yeah.
by the way?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to put a dirty word
I
thingy.
will I will refrain. I'm sorry. I just realized
No,
I did
you
that
can
before, but I'll
curse. You
refrain.
can
Okay.
curse.
Okay.
Yeah. But it okay, so at some point someday I want to have Faith Popcorn on. She's a brand analyzer and she's helped people like me market better.
Oh.
She came up with a term in the 90s or late 80s called cocooning, which
Ooh.
is about protecting yourself and hiding from the world and being able to still get stuff done.
Oh, that's great. I would love to. I need a little bit of that because I am not unaffected by all of this, and it's you try not to let it seep into your personal life and your work and stuff like that, but some days you're just it just wrecks you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I see a tenacity with you. So I'm wondering if
Thank you.
when you're going through your depression, are you an optimist when you're depressed, or what's your state of mind? And that's a picture from Duff It, your
That
movie.
is a picture from Duffet, and I
What
I
is?
think what's great about that screenshot is
Yeah.
I'm running in it. So what's great, I don't like it's hilarious because I'm like probably mid step and my hair is like I look stressed as all hell, but I mean it's good. It works for the thing. Um, my depression now is different than I think it probably was when I was younger because I'm so aware. I'm very self-aware of when I'm going through it. So it's almost like when, I don't know if you've ever gotten high before,
Yeah.
but for any of your listeners, okay, there you go. So, but for any of your listeners, there's some people who get high and they ride that shit out, and it's an experience. And there's some people who get super paranoid. I am one of those people who I know what I'm feeling and why I'm feeling it in the moment. So I have to make the choice of okay, don't because I will fight it. Like if I get too high, like my friend gave me a cookie once. We're in the movie theater, and I was like, I'm fucked. This is the I like everything. Like I could feel my heartbeat, like the whole thing. I couldn't feel my legs anymore, and I was like, but I knew what was happening. But there's this impetus that you have to fight it and kind of like whatever, or you just take the ride and you go, I'm gonna be gone for the next 3 hours. Um, I think sometimes. I'm like that with whenever I start to get depressed now, where I'm aware it's coming, I can feel it. Sometimes you can stave it off, but when you're in it, I just go, okay, this is exact. I know what my brain is going to tell me.
Right.
I know I'm gonna feel like the people who love and care about me probably don't, and I'm going to make assumptions about things. And because I'm aware of that stuff, I very rarely ever act on anything in that state. Um, and I'm not like an optimist or pessimist. I mean, when I'm depressed, I'm very pessimistic, and it's this weird thing of like. Um, I'll definitely there's always I don't know why there's always like a clock and I'll go this is going to be the countdown to when I drive off a bridge. So
Oh,
so
no.
no like in yeah, I mean that but like I would never do it. But it is like how you feel like it is just how I process it and feel about things. To me it's definitely in my brain the way it works that extreme is an option to me, but for some reason it's an option in a way that's like, well, you know, if it ever gets too fucking bad, for some reason that's comforting to me. And I know it's not, and I don't recommend it. I always tell people to, you know, fight through that kind of thing, but I'm trying to be as honest as I can about what I
It's
feel when
all
it
right.
happens. And it's like, I was in it for about 6 months going up and down, struggling through different things, and whatever, and you just cannot help but have that feeling of like, how long can I wake up? Feeling that how long can I go through this? How long can I suffer through feeling like this?
Hmm.
And, it's sometimes you're like, well,
Yeah, I mean,
you don't have to.
I didn't want to kill myself, but I know I was waiting for the world to end.
Yeah,
And this
there's
was
that too.
around 2016 when Trump became president. I
Hmm.
really made extra efforts to try to mend fences with people that I'd gotten fights with. And I was like, come on, come on, come on, let's do it, that type of thing. Let's mend fences.
Yeah.
And like half of them really were, okay, you want to mend fences with me? I'm gonna fuck you up, girl. That
Wow.
type of thing. Yeah, I
That's
had no idea how bad people were
yeah.
until, yeah, a friend gave
And
me a class.
sometimes though, the good part about that, maybe I am a bit positive about that kind of shit. Because when you find out how people truly are, it should be such a relief instead of like maybe it's shocking initially in the beginning as you're not expecting it, but you are like for me, I go, I tried. I'm bettering myself. I gave whatever it was a shot, and that other person is not ready to meet me at the place
Yes.
I'm in. And that can be a totally fine thing, and you can walk away from it.
Yeah. Well, it took me about, with all the people that I worked with, it probably took me until the last 2 years or so. There's a new book, and
Right.
I'm a podcast junkie. Mel Robbins's podcast, and she's got Let Go. You've
Yeah.
heard of it,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about it now. Let go.
Yeah,
You
it's a
you
good
get
one.
grief, let go.
Yeah. Yeah, it's when I was going through it again, like I said recently, and I might still like I don't know if I'm coming out of it or I'm having a couple good days or whatever it is. Um,
Let go.
but like I definitely I think I've known the thing that what happens when it's going on or whatever is you just feel unexplainably horrible.
Right.
And it's not and it manifests itself physically, mentally, and all this other stuff. And to me, I can get through anything. I can get through like when I'm good and I'm feeling great and everything else. And I don't know if it's a mix with the ADD or whatever the hell else it is, but like there's not a lot that bothers me in general. But if I can't control how I actually feel, like if I'm just like if my brain is making me just constantly feel like I'm in my head's in a vice and I'm swimming in self-doubt and negative thoughts and all this other stuff. There is a clock that starts and you're like, how long can I keep going through this? And the thing that I think people don't understand, and I'll always talk about this too, is like you know, I'll see these messages all the time, especially for Suicide Awareness Month and stuff like that, which is
Sure.
like, or mental illness, one of those months or whatever, where it's like, you know, uh, call somebody if you need help. I always try to make it as clear as possible. That is not an option. There is nobody who is close to thinking about ending their life who is like, let me just real quick run through a Rolodex because at that stage they have already convinced themselves there's nothing left for me to I can't take anything that's going to fix me. They're tired. They're probably
Right.
exhausted. They don't want to do this anymore. And they've already probably convinced themselves that like you're not thinking externally about your friends or anything like that. Like you're not like, oh man, what you're just like they'll get over it because you've also you know, like they've I don't know why my camera's freezing or why it froze. But what a good picture. Did I lose you? Are you still there?
I'm still here.
Fantastic. Yeah, my camera just totally went off. I'm not sure why. I'm gonna try to restart it real quick. Um, but that is so weird. Sorry about that.
It's all good. Hey, you look like some people's Facebook profiles right now.
That is so weird that it just went off like that.
Oh no, we're gonna miss your hair and everything.
No, I'm gonna get it back up and fail to start the video camera. Please select. I think you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna try this. We're gonna go here. We're gonna go. Minicam.
Miracles.
I know, right? And we're
Yeah.
gonna pretend like nothing. Well, that's not. There we go. So yeah, that'll work out so much better. Oh, that did not happen the way I wanted it to. Okay.
I see your
So
lips moving when you're telling the truth. But
so
yeah, people can be at rock bottom and not want to talk to anybody.
yeah, and it has and the other thing too is like, it never people always think like what could I have they always say, what can I have done? And there's usually not anything in particular. You know what I mean? Like, but I always say the best thing you can do is just check on your friends that go through. Even if you don't know that they're depressed or whatever, just fuck it. It doesn't take much. If somebody
Yeah.
crosses your mind while you're out, like I've had friends who go, you know what I thought of the other day? So and so. And I'll be like, oh, cool. Did you reach out? And they're like, no, do it. Worst they can
Yes.
do is get back to you 4 days later or not at all or whatever it is. It costs you nothing to
Right.
say, hey man, just thinking about you. Hope you're doing all right. Blah blah blah. And that's it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it's just but yeah, people in that state are not thinking um about
No.
anybody else. They're just like,
Yeah.
this is exhausting.
Yeah. And they're thinking, I can't call this person because they're going to put me down or something like that.
Yeah, that could be too. Or just a very simply they might not for me it's like, I I never I never talk to any. I mean, I'll talk to a few friends. I have a few close friends where we do check-ins, and we
Good.
just go, "How you doing? I'm feeling like this. I'm feeling like that. Whatever." Um, but for everybody else, I know for me sometimes talking about it, I don't like doing it because one of two things. One, the other person might feel like they have to do something or they need to I've never in my life when I'm feeling like it told my friends anything about like man I feel like just fucking jumping off a cliff or that wasn't caked in a layer of a joke
Right.
um because there's nothing they can do about it. They're not and I don't particularly want to put that burden on. I don't think anybody needs that shit from me. And also because I know when am doing that, I do. Sometimes I really do want somebody to take it away, and I know they're not capable of it. So the progress, like it would not do anything. What I do for myself is, and people might find this useful too, and maybe they do it anyway, is I will make a call if I'm not, if I'm feeling how I'm feeling, and we'll just talk about whatever. Because sometimes it's just the act of
Yes.
knowing somebody will pick up, or knowing you
Connecting.
can talk about nonsense, or they're like happy that you called or they're running through their day and you're like, you need to hear normalcy because all you've been with the entire, how many days, whoever it is this guy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's a fucking it's a tough road.
One of the podcasts I listen to is Diary of a CEO.
Ooh.
And yeah, there was a recent show where they had
Was
a
it is
couple
it
of
like woke dear diary woke up rich today? uh
no,
how does
it's
that
more
work?
like this British guy interviewing people like Mel Robbins or
Oh,
Tony
okay.
Robbins uh, about their career and their latest project. And when Trump got elected, he decided to interview people from both sides of the aisle to
Mm,
find out what they thought would be happening to our country. And
right.
one of the guests on the show insisted that there's a bunch of white males that have been neglected and looked over by this whole Biden uh, inclusion type of thing,
Yeah.
and that they really need to be lifted up. And the only way to do that is to get Trump type policies to help white guys. And they're
Brutal.
they're the depressed guys, and they need help. And the only way they're surviving is by posting troublesome stuff on the internet.
Right.
So on one hand, it's yeah, my heart goes out to these people, but on the other hand, it's like, dude, we all go through this.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely true. I think there's a so I don't think a lot of the times people address the whole of social media now. Like so, okay, in the very when we had MySpace before Facebook came out, and then Facebook came out, And then, even in the advent of Twitter, there wasn't there wasn't as many people. Now I think like the amount of people that use social media, Facebook, Instagram, is like too small country. You know what I mean? Like it's like or larger than too small country or whatever it is. So, but I don't think people really take into account the fact that there is a lot of mental health issues on unchecked, by the way. So these are people
Yeah,
who are not
unchecked.
in therapy or have never been to a therapy or anything like that, and maybe don't even have the communal capability of venting to, or whatever the hell it is, but they do have the internet. And
Right.
and multiply like even the best of us when we're not face to face with somebody can get into an argument on the internet and be like, God, I don't even recognize what myself, what the fuck did I just say? Because you do have that sense of abandon when you're on it. Um,
Sure.
but yeah, I mean
Or
that
it's
does make
easier to express it.
yeah. There was a guy during the first Trump administration um who was just on my Instagram. And you've seen my Instagram. I'm very, vocal about what I believe in and what I stand for, and very much a socialist and a resistance person. And and I'll speak out whenever I can. I have a decent sized platform, and I choose to use it that way. And I had this
Good.
dude who white guy from Long Island who shocking by the way, who was just like first went after the political post that I had put up and disagreed with that for some reason. I don't remember what it was.
Sure.
I think it may have been about that kid who went down to the BLM rally. I can't think of his name, with the AR-15 and
Kyle Rittenhouse.
Kyle Rittenhouse, and I blasted him for for the bullshit he was
Good.
spewing and all this other stuff. And it got like, it went insane, right? But anyway, I noticed he was on there like, saying some shit to me about that. And then he decided to go after and comment on every post I had. Just one after the other trying
Yeah.
to get my attention. And at one point, I just was like, normally I would either block that person or kind of rag on them a little bit back and forth because you know, if you're on social media, you're always arguing peripherally. I always think
Sure.
you're never going to convince the guy who's lost who's not willing to have a debate, but you do
Right.
argue so that other people maybe who are somewhat reasonable or on the fence in the corner can see
Yes,
the
I
other side of
used
the
to
view.
have that. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So anyway, but for some reason I DM'd the dude and I just went, "Hey man, are you okay?" And he goes, "Why the fuck are you messaging me?" Um, he's like, this is so weird, dude. Like, you don't, why are you? I'm like, I said, you've taken a particular interest in my account. And I said, and it doesn't seem, geared toward, I'm like, I just don't understand. Like, are you okay? Like, what's going on? Otherwise, well, I'll just block you. Like, we don't need to do this. And he was like, well, no, I'm not okay if you need to know. And I was like, well, what's going on? And he's like, he's like, I actually do think you're funny and whatever. And I don't actually have anything against you, but I'm just so tired of this shit. Everybody ragging on white dudes and blah, blah, blah. And we had this long conversation where I was just like, I get that he was a guy, a young dude in his early 20s, maybe like 21, living in Long Island, engaged to his girlfriend. And it was still during the pandemic. So he was struggling to get work and all this other shit. And um, he was just like, like he's telling me all this shit, and he's like, it just seems like everybody hates me for no reason, whatever, blah blah. And I just was kind of like, I get that that's the perception, and I just explained like that's what the other side kind of wants you to feel. It's not how we want you to feel. Like you're just as valuable or whatever the hell it is.
Good.
And I'm like, but I understand why it feels that way. And I'm like, but the reason why it feels that way is because, and I just laid it out. ABC, like women have been oppressed for a very long time. Immigrants, black people, what, all this other stuff. It has nothing to do with you being white. It has nothing to do again you as an individual. I don't know you. I'm going to assume you have good intentions and whatever, but this, whatever. So anyway, we talked about it. And then he was like, I'm actually getting into painting and yada yada yada. And like he would send me his art for a bit and we kept in touch. And
Right.
and I was like, I can't do that for everybody. I'm not gonna and
No,
I've definitely had DM conversations with people that did not go that well. But it is
me
kind of
too.
funny like that they don't realize they're being used by the other party to be because there's nothing better than ignorance and anger, and the
No,
other
yeah.
side likes to utilize it.
it's a brain thing. And also, I just want to compliment you for the "Are you okay?" thing. That's also what Sarah Silverman has been trying to encourage people to do periodically.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it ended up to be a article in some place like the Atlantic. I don't remember. I have to research that
Wow.
if I do remember.
Oh, I
But
think I
it's
remember that years ago, and it was a guy like 10, it's got to be like 10 years now or something like that, but uh where some guy was like in severe back pain, like just could not get the care he needed, the health care he needed. And I think she and like Patton or somebody, Patton Oswalt maybe or somebody else had like, you know, she had asked him how, what's going on, and maybe this guy's in pain, and I don't know about it. Turns out he was. He was just
yeah.
miserable and couldn't get what he needed, and then she helped him out, which is just, I mean, I don't have that kind of money, but but like,
No, no.
but that is, I think
Okay.
that's a lot. I think that speaks to a lot of these people who are, just fucked over by the system. It's sorry, I mean, this is your show. I'm talking
No, no,
forever.
no,
So,
no, no. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Keep going.
what I'm saying is, I just like, you know, I mean, yeah, we have Trump supporters and we have people that are doing it out of pure greed and they're super wealthy and they're rich and they don't give a fuck about anybody else around them. And then there's other people who are just blatantly racist and don't understand and
Oh, yeah.
definitely don't want, immigrants, no matter what they contribute in this country whatsoever. But there are people who I think are just I don't know what's going on in the government. All I know is my family cannot get to a doctor and they can't eat, and I don't know how to help them. So I
Yeah.
think they waver in and out of, democratic rule and the other side. I think they're just like, who is going to, if it doesn't get better under the Democrats for me, I got to go the other side. And then they go the other side. And then when the
Yeah.
time comes around again, they're like,
Well,
maybe
that,
this fucking guy. I don't know.
yeah, that didn't work out. I'm segueing the conversation because I love this whole connection thing,
Hmm.
and yeah, there are people that have humongous budgets. Like there are conventions for favorite TV shows, and we were talking before the podcast about the show that you're binging on now or
Yeah.
watching regularly is Supernatural,
Hmm.
which has become my favorite show.
Yeah, it's the best.
Yeah.
It it's I mean I watched it when it was on TV, and then my buddy, actually my old roommate, got me into it, one of my best friends, and he he was watching it for years, and then he was like, "You'd really like this show." And the only thing I knew about it was that it was on the WB, and at first I was like, "I can't," the WB to me was like Seventh Heaven and,
Yeah.
whatever. But this was like just caked in all kinds of lore and
Yeah.
super just some of the episodes are incredibly camp, but in the best way. Those, I think, collectively, the directors, the writers, and obviously but they just tapped into something and got it. And
Yes.
and there wasn't, I mean, even like, so one of my favorite things about that show is that an entire new season obviously had a plot point and a through line and whatever they were going to get to. And they never gave you a chance to get bored of the plot that was running through it, because they would break it up and go, okay, this episode is just going to be an old-fashioned fucking ghost hunt. And because they're stuck, they can't figure out what's going on, but a clown just murdered somebody in a high school and they're going, and so
Yeah.
it was very Scooby-Doo-esque, and then they did that, so it was
Yeah. They
just
did a
you
Scooby
couldn't,
Doo episode.
yeah. And fucking so good. It was just it's still one of my favorite shows. That's why it
It
ran for 15 seasons. It was just, constantly amazing.
Yeah, totally, totally. Well, one of the one eh, eh, there's always a segment in my interview shows where I take a diversion from another show that I'm watching, which lately I've been watching another show that has Texas actors in it, which is JJ Starbuck from 1987, 88.
Hmm.
And the coincidence of Supernatural and it, is that one of the late writers, Kim Manners, also directed episodes for
JJ
JJ
Starbuck.
Starbuck.
Mm.
Yeah. And it's really got, and Jimmy Dean is also on the show sometimes, the big bad John guy.
Okay, okay. I
And he
remember
was
Jimmy
also on Daniel Boone, which is the show I watched uh
and and
after
and Ben
Supernatural.
Vereen's on it too, right?
Yeah, yes, yes, yes. Ben
Yeah.
Vereen is going to be on an episode later on in the season. Bill Bixby was on the
Oh
pilot.
my God, that's right. Bill Bixby. Yeah, and he was young in that, I think, right? Or no?
Yeah, yeah. It was definitely after courtship of Eddie's father, but before the Hulk.
Hulk. Yeah, that's what I thought. That weird in between time where you're like, is that Bill Bixby?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, no, he's great in this.
yeah.
I've
So
only seen a few episodes. Like they don't really rerun this show that much.
no, they don't. You can find it on some of the Voodoo like channels. I'm watching it on YouTube,
Mm,
which is second. It's not
yeah.
primary video, but you're still getting the show.
No, that's great though. It's like that show
Yeah.
and Airwolf they never rerun, but Airwolf is fucking awesome too. Not to,
Shut up.
it's yeah, it's just a ridiculous show. Airwolf is a ridiculous show. I love it. It's so of its time, but also like there's no reason for it.
Yeah. Well, I like also, and the gist of JJ Starbuck is he's driving around. This guy is a billionaire
Hmm.
who has learned his lessons, and he's a cross between Taylor Swift and Agatha Christie, where he solves murder problems. Bill Bix.
I love that. That's like I would have never thought to put those two together, but that's great.
Well, when I was watching Supernatural, I was thinking that it was high horror, sci-fi, and horror meets Batman. So
Yeah.
what did you think of that show
Of what show?
of Supernatural when you were watching that? Uh, like if you could say it's a cross between this and that.
Oh, for me, it was definitely a cross between the old Scooby-Doo cartoons
Hmm.
and my God, I'm trying to think of what other show it was like at the time. Maybe like a Starsky and Hutch,
Sure.
like that
You know,
kind of a th
there's a really funny, I'll put it in the description for this show below, but there's a really funny video between at from a Supernatural fan club convention.
Hmm.
And I meant to tell you about this when we were first talking about that, because I know everyone compliments you and your hair, and so
Yeah.
and I'm not sure who all it reminds me of, but that's where I was going off in the conversation,
Hmm.
where um, Sam, the
Yeah.
taller one from Supernatural, somebody in the audience is like, "Oh, I want to know how you do your hair," and Jensen Ackles is cracking his head off and takes $1 out of his wallet and walks across the stage and gives it to the fan. It's like, yeah, yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah.
That is
But
so great.
there's a lot more interplay. Those two are really good together. So
Oh, they really are. Yeah, they're the best. And just I love that what's his name used to call them Moose and Squirrel because of their
yeah,
height,
yeah, yeah. The English guy who's a
yeah,
drummer. Um,
yes. I'm trying to think of his fucking name in the show now. Why am I
I
blanking
know,
on
and
everything?
I'm um Leighton.
It's
Oh gosh, we're
not to
both
cut this.
blank. It'll.
Yeah. It was I don't remember. Damn it. But
Yeah,
anyway,
I
I'll
know.
think of it like 2 seconds. Again,
Yeah,
I've watched the show a million times. Yeah.
we're not
But yeah, no, it's
we're
great.
not
They're
losing our
awesome together.
minds.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
hair. Yeah, I've seen him. I've seen Jared get asked about his hair too. He always has, but like I had a dude. I was in a Panera Bread, and this guy who worked there came out as I was leaving, and it was just like, "Hey man, I gotta ask you, like, what do you put in your?" Because he had like kind of long hair. I mean, he was up in a thing because he was working in the back in the kitchen, but he's like, I gotta ask you what you use in your hair. And I always feel like such a dick because I'm like, oh man, like it's the shampoo in the rounder bottle and like, like the conditioner I'm just like, I don't know. I just, I was like, I use frizzies sometimes to keep it because I've really like I have coarse hair and it can like this is somewhat ta like it'll go like that if I don't have anything like in
Like
it.
conditioner.
Oh
Yeah.
God. Yeah. It's just wild most of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I'm
I
thankful I
had,
have it.
yeah, when I was younger, before it started going gray, my
Hmm.
hair was thick like yours, and it still is thick enough. So,
Yeah, yeah, it looks great.
yeah. Oh, thank you.
You
Um,
remind me of my English teacher, one of my favorite people in the entire world I just spoke to. I just found out she was cancer free as of yesterday, so that's awesome.
yes.
Yeah, she's great. But yeah, oh my God. I was like, as soon as you popped on, I was like, did I accidentally hit the wrong like screen or whatever? Oh, it was one of my favorite she's one of my favorite English classes ever. She's great.
Oh,
Had
cool.
her 2 years in a row.
Tell her congratulations, and it's good to be
I will.
cancer free. Trust me on that.
Absolutely.
Do you have any dream interviews for your podcast, folks that you would love to interview, and why?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would love to get Springsteen on for sure.
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
I've had his old manager on, I've had Stevie Van Zandt on, and I've had Jake Clemens on. And I don't, I mean, I'm a Jersey kid and Springsteen is Jersey. I don't even know, you know, it's one of those things where like I probably don't deserve to interview Springsteen, but at the same time, like I don't care
Right,
because
right, 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 right.
I just want this FaceTime. Yeah, I'd love to get Springsteen on, and there's a bunch of musicians that I haven't. McCartney would be great. Um, God, but I have
Mhm.
modern bands that I would love to have. Ellie Rousel from uh oh my God, from Wolf Alice is one of
Right.
my favorite newer bands, and she
Oh,
is I mean not a newer in terms of like I think they're just making like their last album was really really fucking good and huge. I think it was called Blue Lullaby. Great album, but yeah, they're great. Yeah, those kind of people would be amazing. Trying to think. I just had Paul Reiser on, which was a huge for me again. Like these are huge. Like I love Paul Reiser. I grew
right,
up
right.
on his comedy and Mad About You and stuff. So that was, and I interviewed him a couple years ago, um, for the press because he was going to be doing something, and then I hung out with him um the next day or whatever, and then a couple years later, it took me a couple years to actually get him on the podcast.
Hmm.
But yeah, he was great. So I'm trying to think of other
You got Jay Leno on your cast, which that's an
I
A
did.
list for.
Yep, love Leno. He's been a good guy. Letterman would be somebody. Conan would be somebody I would kill to have
Hmm.
on the pod. And you know what? And also like even Ellen DeGeneres was somebody who was pivotal for me when I was younger. Um, but I know
I like your sense of humor.
yeah, she's great. And but I know those Ellen's probably never gonna happen. Just because she's disappeared, like she moved to the UK. Um, there's some people I know are probably never gonna happen. Dick Van Dyke,
Oh,
yeah, I love Dick
oh,
Van Dyke. I've had Bill Persky on
right.
numerous times. And Dick is he's 99. So
I Julie Andrews is one of my favorites.
oh
If without her, I would never have wanted a Mary Poppins lunchbox. So
oh
I
my God, yeah, yeah, she's great.
just one, yeah, absolute favorite. uh, you've got so many different activities. There's five of these books left on Amazon. Drawings
Oh,
from what is this?
this was an attempt at success. And
Hmm.
no, it was so I've always, been able to draw since I was younger and um it was something I only ever wanted to be two things growing up and it was either a comedian or a cartoonist and I loved cartoonists when I was a kid. I wrote to Steve Breen who did the comic strip Grand Avenue and is a great political cartoonist who's from New Jersey who now lives in San Francisco, I believe. And I got to have him on the podcast too. But I also emailed Mike Peters, Scott Adams before he was fucking insane, who did Dilbert, Jim Davis from Garfield, Rick Kirkman and Jerry Scott from Baby Blues, and God, who else did I email? I think I emailed Kathy Guyswhite, who did Kathy, and oh,
Oh,
and
I miss her.
yeah, and oh my God, I'm blanking on her name, but she did for better or for worse, something Johnson. Um,
Okay.
but I emailed all these people when I was younger because I was that was how I coped and dealt with everything was because I could draw and um I drew my own comic strips. I drew all this other shit, and I emailed them to ask them if I needed to be good at math to succeed as a cartoonist and all this other stuff, and just for tips and what they use to draw. Um, and yeah, and I also just wanted to be a comedian. So it was those two things. And then, I never gave up drawing, but I did let it go by the wayside because, I started doing stand up. And once I started doing that, I just focused solely on that kind of thing. And then there were just something I don't know if it was because I had an iPad and I could draw on that or whatever it was. Um, but I just started drawing again, and I realized some of the jokes I did, if they weren't working on, or if they didn't land or hit very hard on stage or the way I was thinking, I was like, oh, they're perfect for cartoons. So I started doing that, and I started posting them on my Instagram, and especially anything political too, or anything like that, that I
Right,
could get a
right.
message out better that way. And then they started to get a little bit of attention, and then I just started drawing in my hotel rooms, when I was in between gigs, there's nothing to do during the day. And
Hmm.
then before long, I had 150 cartoons, and I got asked to do an art show for um, an art museum in Montclair, New Jersey. The
Right.
director was, they were having this big reopening, and I got my own wall. And then they expanded it because it was popular, which is insane because I was looking at the other artists that were there, and there was a guy who took like, you know, bumpers off cars and repaint and did some shit. And it was fucking amazing. And mine were just whatever, but she said it drew a lot of attention. And then from there, I took all those and put them in a book
Right.
that did not sell.
Oh.
Uh, but
Well,
it did get good.
there are copies left on like 5 copies left on Amazon.
I
So
had no, by the way, I have no idea that that's great if there's 5 copies left. I don't know what they were distributed from. My God, I can't remember the name of the place at the time that I went through. So maybe they must have whatever copies are left. I'm stunned. I wonder if I even see any money from that. That's hilarious. I have no idea. But I did have the great thing about this, and I recommend it to anybody who's starting out in comedy or listening or whatever it is. Like, a friend told me a very long time ago to um, just always have a lot of different outlets in your tool belt, a lot of different
yeah,
tools in your tool belt and and to make sure they're all utilized. You never need to sit on one while you're doing the other because this helped me immensely in meetings.
right,
When I was living out in LA and going on these meetings with Comedy Central and Viacom and NBC and Fox, I brought a book, and it was so much better than a business card because it was like we're talking to this guy about a script he wrote or something we want him to host, and then you slide this across the table, and you're like, and also, hey, heads up, I wrote a book. And the cool thing about it too is I got a quote from a cartoonist from the New Yorker, who loved them. So it wasn't like financially beneficial, but it was creatively beneficial. And it's this kind of stuff that kind of keeps you alive and thriving while you're struggling,
yeah.
while you're suffering.
You're like a deep social butterfly where you are creating on so many levels.
Thank you.
And
I never thought of it that
yeah,
way.
yeah. Well, I agree personally that it's a great way to approach a career, although there are some people that just need to focus on 1 or 2 things.
Yeah,
But
it's
in this
beneficial
day
to do
and
that too.
age, yeah,
I mean, you
I
can focus on one or two things, but but I've seen. I guess it's again, most of it's just about balance. Thanos was right. No, just kidding. But there was, like I've seen people focus on something that's just not working forever and lose traction. And for me, it was never that anything wasn't in particular working, but there's a lot of downtime. There's a lot of waiting around sometimes. And
Hmm.
you can get gigs and book gigs and work on your craft and do stand up and stuff. But even if you're trying to write and create something or get on a show or do whatever, there's a lot of fucking waiting around. So in those times when you're not doing anything, it's best to have a different outlet. And I think that's helped me kind of, sometimes I forget some of the shit I've done, but you know,
I hear you. I hear you. I've
yeah.
forgotten stuff, but it's also like having, not everybody has only heavy metal records. We have Prince and ABBA and artists that
Yes.
the guy from next door and people we don't know. It's variety is a spice of life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
One of the interviews that I heard you do, you were talking about, I do not just want to play in my hometown, which was Tom's River,
Oh
Asbury
yeah.
Park. I want to travel. I don't want to just rely on being the Asbury Park comedian. And
Right.
and you travel a lot.
Yeah. And thank you. Um and that's a weird kind of thing too, because you know, it I'm glad I've done that, and because I think I would have been very unhappy if I had stayed in one spot. But it's the thing about the Asbury stuff is, you know, people seem to reward or towns like that, and I love Asbury Park. I always love Asbury Park. I got to open for Jake Clemens at the Stone Pony. It was blew my fucking mind, and it was fantastic. But when you have like a small town atmosphere like that, they either and you've been gone for a while, they'll either completely forget you were ever there, or they have that kind of fiefdom sort of shit where they're if you go back or whatever, they're like, well, you left, you didn't stick around. But sticking around means never leaving the open mic bar
Right.
that you're doing that thing at. So it's very, very hard to navigate sometimes.
Yeah, and it gives you the opportunity to learn something new that you can bring back too.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
What's something you get out of traveling? Because I remember the movie Punchline, and every night
Mm.
Sally Field and um I can't remember his name, but
Tom Hanks.
yeah, Tom Hanks. They kept going. Yeah, they kept going into the city. We haven't remembered the name of that English devil guy from Supernatural yet, but we
Yeah, I
will.
know that's gonna drive me crazy.
Sorry.
I know. I'm
Tom,
like refusing to look it up on my phone because I'm like, I know his name. I know it'll come
I
up. He's a
know
great
Mark
actor.
Shepard is the actor, so
Mark
that's what.
Shepard, that's the actor's name. Yes.
Yeah, but I don't remember the character he played. Anyhow, so
It's the character that he played. God damn it.
no, we'll get
It's
there.
yeah, I'm sorry. We'll figure it. I'll
I
figure it out.
know,
I'll remember in a
yeah.
second. Mark
Anyhow,
Shepard.
yeah. So yeah, there I go, sticking to one topic. But
Yeah.
yeah, they're traveling. Every night they go out and they're doing their comedy and things like that in the movie Punchline,
Yeah.
and wow, it's exhausting. So, but there are benefits. I know that because you're getting out of your hometown and you're getting in front of people. Are
Yeah.
there benefits to actually driving? How do you do your routine when you're driving? Because you can't write, you can't do anything.
My routine or what I'm thinking comedically is always in my head and always
Uh-huh.
playing out. My brain does not ever let me stop to the point of I will get sick of a joke before I've even told it that long because my brain has already played it out in every scenario and every rewritten it but which is a benefit too because to me it becomes very familiar. And not that I lose, I mean, I still get the joy of performing it for the first time in front of people. But
Right.
I mean, as far as whether or not, like, if I like, they'll be like, "How do you know a joke works?" It's because I know. I can't explain how I know. Like the structure of it is great, and I know it'll get the result I want. but I've also now played it in my head so many times I can't not do it wrong, whatever. Um, and but I love drive. I've always loved when I was in high school, I was the guy who volunteered to pick up his friends at the
Oh,
airport
wow.
or the train station or whatever. Because by the way, that's when shit happens. That's when you get to know people. Those are like I never understood and I love them to, some of my friends are like that too, but I've never understood people who who are like, "Oh, God, I don't want to have to go far. I don't want to have to drive this way. I don't want to have to."
Right, right,
No,
right.
that's when you stop off somewhere weird for food, and then you have a story about the waiter, the restaurant. That's when you're alone in a car with somebody for so fucking long,
Let's take a
shit
road
slips
trip.
out, and you get to hear a story you've never heard before, or you now create a bond with this person because you did this thing
Yes.
that somebody else wouldn't. So no, this the whole point of cars is to be in them and to travel and to do whatever. I mean, trust me, I'll lose my mind if I'm in traffic for too long. But excuse me, there's no, yeah, there's no, like I drove cross country twice and I could not give a fuck less about where I have to go for a gig if it's in my car. I don't like, I love it.
Right.
Um, yeah, and also hotels. I was always a hotel kid. I loved. I
Me
remember there was one time
too.
we had to stay in a hotel because there was like a fire in the area. We were living in Arizona, and I was like, "This is the best fucking goddamn." I didn't even think that we weren't gonna have like whatever when we went back to the house. I was like, "Ho fucking tell, this is great. New remote in a hotel, new channels. I don't know what's on in a hotel. Why is the
True,
Mary Tyler
true.
Moore show on? It's a hotel. I don't know."
Room service.
Room service, yeah, the diner downstairs, eating at random times, like all of it was so much fun. I want to take a boxcar train like they did in White Christmas to Canada. Well, they went to Vermont, but when they sang about snow and had sandwiches, I'll do it.
So your website, there's a store on the page. What's this t-shirt? Rebel without a cost t-shirt.
Oh,
What's that?
so my friend, very, very talented graphic designer and artist Diana Radubel and I collaborated on designs for t-shirts for Dystopia Tonight, and that is one of hers. And I love that design. I love that. That's probably one of my favorite ones.
I like
Um,
it.
yeah, the revolution will be monetized because I'm consistently talking about um, that while it is, Trump is bad for everything. There's so many people making money off of this shit on Reels and TikTok and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't be. I'm just saying it's fucking dystopic and bizarre that one thing constantly feeds into the other and you don't know who's being genuine and who's, you know,
No.
um, because we're all reporting the news to some extent now. Like you know that, right? Like there's
True.
there isn't
Media,
like
social
sometimes
media.
I just see people I've never like my friends will send me videos and it's not of a reporter or anybody I've ever seen. It's some fucking kid reading what I just read on, CNN or whatever. And which is like fine, I guess, however we have to get our information. But then I look and it's like, wow, this video has 1 million views and they're monetizing it. So that means by just reading this information, like it's something that I just can't get around. And so yeah, if we're gonna have a revolution, uh, people are gonna want to film it. It's not gonna be without some kind of, reality TV aspect to it, unfortunately.
Yeah, or it is real, but not really real. It's pretending to be real.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
There's so many times where stuff has happened before where I'm like, oh, this seems, or you know what, something has happened, but it's gone away so quickly that I'm like, that was a pretty quick dispersion of that,
Yeah.
you know. But who knows, who the fuck knows?
What shows do you have coming up?
I do have some shows coming up. Um, I've got a gig we'll be in DC at the DC Comedy Loft, but that isn't probably till the summer. We'll be in Virginia at Kazi's Comedy Club coming up in March. Um, and trying to think of what God, I know that. Oh, Flounders Brewing Company, there's another gig. But that's in July. We have a Joanne and I have a bunch of stuff and a bunch of dates coming up. I can't recall. I'm so my brain is so focused on this MS benefit right now. Like I know, like I think I said that in the beginning, but
Yeah, what dates are you?
March
Uh-huh.
26th to the 27th, I'll be going live on the Twitch Dystopia Tonight page. Um, for 24 hours to raise money for the National MS Society. I've done it for 4 years straight. And we have a bunch of, I mean, I have like 60 to 80 guests that try to
Wow.
entertain. Colin Mockery was there last year. He was there, actually, he's been there every year. Last year, he stayed on for like 6 hours. Stephen Page from the Bare Naked Ladies is a good friend, and he comes on.
Oh,
Glenn
oh,
Phillips from
oh.
Toad the Wet Sprocket, another good friend that comes on. The Gin Blossoms did a 6 song acoustic set last time. They were on the air. Mike Farrell and Shelley Fabre, Mike's from
Wow.
MASH. Yeah. And God, George Wendt from Cheers popped in. Paul Schaefer. Um,
Wow. I love
uh,
him.
yeah, Paul Schaefer's great. Ricky Byrd from Joan Jett and the Blackhearts.
Oh,
Uh,
we're interviewing him.
oh, that's great. Ricky's the
Yeah.
best. And Art Alexakis, who's the lead singer of Everclear, opens it up with me every year because he's an MS Warrior. Um, you know, we had astronaut Chris Hadfield on. Billy West is a great voiceover artist who did the series Doug and Futurama and Space Jam. He did Bugs Bunny.
Wow.
So like Megan Kavanaugh from League of Their Own, Dee Dee Pfeiffer. So there's just a lot of like
I've
random
heard
Lewis
of a
Black,
lot of
Rita
these
Rudner,
people. Yeah, yeah.
Robert Klein.
Oh, he
Uh,
Bronx Boy.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's been really good, and that goes on every year, and we look forward to doing it. So
Excellent. Excellent. I want to thank you so much. This was amazing and you rock.
thank you
And
so much.
and
So do
I
you. This is fantastic. I had a lot of fun.
me too. Me too. Me too. So
Awesome.
thank you. We will have a great time and thank you also for your service to comedy. Anything you want to add?
No, follow me on Instagram at John Poveromo. That'd be great.
Great. And I'll post your social media. Everyone can see your social
Thank
media.
you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Take care, guys.